Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. My guests tonight are two juniors that go to San Ramon Valley High School. They reached out to me and wanted to talk about their experience in school over the last 10 months and just the experience in school in general. We talked about so much, ranging from communication to relationships to just where they see their future going. I was so pleased I got a chance to talk to them. So without further ado, the women, the myth, the legends, Carly and Kylie. How many hours were you on Zoom today?
8, maybe? I don't know. I would say, we start at 9:40 and get out at, 2:25, 3 o'clock, depending on the day.
That's not even that bad. That's like 6 hours.
It's gotten a lot better the second semester, but first semester we were on Zoom from 9 to 3.
Well, look, when you start working in an office in a cubicle, it takes some adjusting, and that's essentially what you are, just cubicle workers at this point. Do you have the blue light glasses?
I do.
I do. I got glasses last year because I got bad eyes for whatever reason, and my eye doctor was like, just go ahead and do the blue light, you're working on a computer a bunch, just go ahead and do it. So I had him coming in, so
Look
I
at
got
you.
lucky.
Fashionable. We got them for my first grader, and of course I think he's a really cute kid. So he's just sitting there with these glasses on and he looks so studious, and he's at his little iPad and doing this stuff with again these big wide black frame glasses, just doing his stuff. And you go over and you're like, oh my gosh, he's studying, he's trying so hard, that's great. And you go over and you realize he's putting fart emojis in the chat of the thing. You're like, what are you doing? And he's like, you got me. Have you guys have any of those moments where somebody walks in, because you're effectively just do you wear headphones and stuff when you do it too?
No.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Oh, we make our kids wear headphones sometimes because we sit them at the island. But when you put the headphones on and you're watching the screen and somebody's talking at you, you don't even know when somebody's walking up on you.
No.
We've busted them a ton of times just doing the most ridiculous things in the little chat bar. You can't even ground them too, because it's not like it can go anywhere.
No. Yeah.
It's unfortunate. So how is it going? And what really struck me is you both really wanted to talk about what the experience was, right? I didn't bring it up. You just, let me say what's going on. Because here's something interesting. I think it's interesting. I think as young women, you two and you as a group are dictated more to about how you feel about yourselves and how you should feel about your life, which is so bonkers to me. Hear me out. I have tons of female athletes that I work with, and they all say that within the coaching staff, is the staffs that they deal with, the coaches are always telling them that you are very brave, you're courageous. They make these morning declarations and stuff. It's you got to say this stuff about yourself and think this stuff about yourself. And with the real serious athletes that I deal with, they're like, why are we doing this? They don't see the value in it, but they also don't believe that just declaring to the world, I'm brave, I'm hardworking, I'm courageous, makes them that way. But this is what the staff tells the girls to say. And you'd never find a staff of a male team doing that. That struck me. It was a year ago I found this out. I'm like, why is this? We dictate to our young women how they should be feeling about themselves and their own actions instead of trusting them to know what the experience is for each of them individually. It's very odd. Anyway, so when you said you wanted to talk about it, it's yes, let's hear from you. Let's get it from the horse's mouth. So what is it? 6 hours.
Yeah, obviously it's really hard being in online school. You're really isolated. For me, I'm really involved in leadership. I've been in leadership since 8th grade, was the first freshman leadership class at San Ramon, always have thrived in that environment with my peers and putting so much effort into what my life is at school. That's where I'm really happy. It's where I get to see so many people, and that's where I learn the best, because I use my classmates and my teachers as my motivation to push forward. I'm really competitive as is, huge volleyball player, little sisters. And so that has always been my motivation, and just not having that ever since like March 13th last year has just been really, really hard, and maintaining that motivation and keeping up to speed in class has really been a struggle. And like going from like this kind of type A student to like barely wanting to do school every day has just been like a really dramatic like experience.
Yeah, the taking somebody out of the environment that they thrive in is it's a terrible thing. Like I'm an avid athlete. I have been lifelong, and I'm an extremely competitive person. And I had this breakdown in May. I was driving down the freeway, just started bawling in my car. And like I just like lost my cool because I had been removed so intensely and so abruptly from the environment that I thrived in, having these competitive outlets, having these athletic experiences and relationships. I mean, talk about the relationships. My best friends, our friendships has been forged in the fire, man. Like I am closest with the people that I go to war with on a daily basis. And I know this sounds very dramatic to talk about athletics, but I think if you're a serious athlete, and I mean, I'm, going to turn 39 this year. Like I'm not in athletics just kind of as a hobby. Like it's part of me. And removing me from that killed me. It's something I think about now. We're going on, my birthday's at the end of March, and last year it was supposed to be the end of the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It was like, all right, well, by the time my birthday comes around, we'll be like let out of our houses. It wasn't. So we had to do like a Zoom birthday party and beers and stuff. And we're coming up on it again. Yeah, the end of March is coming. I'm like, oh my God, round 2 on Zoom for the birthday. How's it been for you?
So touching on athletics was a huge part of my school career. I met a lot of new friends through tennis at SRV, and I never did any outside of school sports. So that was my one kind of outlet through school. And I ended up going on to track with some of my friends who I did tennis with. And like us not being able to go to school along with making those connections through tennis, I never have seen the majority of the girls on my team in almost a year, which has been very detrimental to my friendships and my connections with other people, because it's just so hard communicating through a screen with friends every day. And it's like, although I can see faces on the screen and interactions, it's just not the same as in person.
It's impossible.
It's crazy.
I was just thinking about this afternoon. One of my best friends, dearest friends, he just up and left. He moved to Reno, right? And he has a lot of reasons, and he was planning to do it later in like 3-4 years, but at this point he was like, I'm out. Like, this is done. And I used to see him every single day. We would travel to competitions together. We'd do everything, right? Like we saw each other every day. We were as close as you could be. And he moved. I didn't get to say goodbye. His daughter had been exposed to somebody who had the Rona, over like I think it was a New Year's party, right? So she had been exposed, and they didn't know this person was sick at the time, but she was in quarantine. And so I couldn't go over and hang out with him and say goodbye. And I just texted him yesterday. I was like, hey, man, how's it going? How's the house? And it's not like he didn't respond. He responded. But you could just tell it's like...
It's not the same.
It's not the same. Mm-mm. It was like a shorter, kind of funny... And I don't think you could blame him at all. And you couldn't blame me. At least I hope you can't blame me. But like, it's one of those things. It's undeniable. It's what I'm kind of getting at. You can't be physically removed from somebody for that long and just desperately try and connect electronically and expect to have the same relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, for me, I have one really, really close friend of mine. She's one of my best friends. And she lives in Reading, and that is like the only connection that I'm able to maintain, because like we're both like it's always going to be a long distance friendship, sure. Like ever since we became friends. And so like she's the only person that like we like can connect over the phone, and like we know how each other texts, and it's just like we Snapchat, and even if we don't like keep responding back and forth, like she'll send me a little video of like what she's doing. She might not directly respond to like my message, but she'll be like, hey, like I'm on a hike, I'm in the snow and whatever. And then like I'll be like, yeah, I'm doing online school, that's fun.
Yeah, right. And that's a very astute point, because the relationships are formed in different ways, right? Like I have, to this point, I have a very dear friend, another great friend, Scott. He's Canadian, okay? He was saying he's seeing his Canadian friends more now than he ever has. But these relationships have had to stand the test of time and distance for years. So they're doing like Friday night, game night, right? And everybody gets together at like 8 o'clock. You get your drink. People in Canada, people in California, people all over the place. And now we're playing. Like we're playing this game and it works for everyone. But that's because those relationships were already molded in that fashion. It's like you're not expecting to see the person. What about the people that you rely on the daily? Like you can't cry on somebody's shoulder when they're on Zoom. You know?
Yeah.
And like the screams and frustration that you may have just don't quite. The audio just gets weird. It's not a great way to scream into the Zoom. Yeah. Well, at least you have that. It's good that you still have friends.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, this has been a really big test for a lot of friendships. Like, I can't speak for Kylie, but like all of my friendships have been tested. And I've also lost a lot of friends this year because of everything that's gone on. Like, we've been in, like, through a lot this year. Through, like, quarantine, like, the election. Like, that has thrown, like, kind of everybody into a turn.
I like that you guys are citing the election as something that you've gone through. Because, and again, I don't think you're wrong to say it. I just think it's a state of existence where it's kind of like, this is the state of our country. The adults lose their minds over the election. And then their 16-year-old children are like, oh my God, we made it. We made it. As if you did like an Iron Man. Like you personally carried the cinder block across the finish line. It's like, what an insane emotional state we find ourselves in.
Yeah. Well, the kids get really invested in it too. Like there's plenty of debates that go on at school.
Are there actually debates? Because this is what I'm starting to realize. Debates are more like, who can call who a Nazi the fastest? And if you can do that and get it to stick, you win. Like, are there meaningful debates? Or they're just like, blah, 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 blah.
I would say that most of the kids trying to talk on these subjects are very uneducated about the topics that they're trying to talk about. But for the most part, I think that some individuals know what they're saying, but others have no clue.
Yeah.
Here's the difficult thing I find is that somebody said to me the other day, it's a very odd thing. They said, look, do you like that you're using your degree now? And I was like, what? So I went into Cal as a math major, but I switched to rhetoric. Okay, so all I did was read, write, argue, all this stuff, right? So they're like, well, you're doing a lot of interviews, or, you've been at the podcast for almost a year now. So are you happy you're using your degree? And it blew me away because it really highlighted the fact that the vast majority of people have such a little understanding of what it means to educate somebody in thought process, right? Like the way I think about things is, I guarantee you, different than a lot of people because of my degree. Right? Because I pay so close attention to language. I pay so close attention to implications of a certain word or an emphasis. That's what rhetoric is. It's persuasion, right? And I'm very attuned to that. But I don't think you have a lot of people striving for that on the regular. Like, it's not popular to have this incredibly nuanced, delicate position. It's popular to get a rise in like 200 characters and, be able to be like, ha, gotcha. Nazi. Have you noticed on both sides how many times the word Nazi has come into just the mainstream dialogue? It's like we have people on the school board or in the union, and we on a local level, the word Nazi is getting brought up. It's like, Nazi. Like, how are we now describing people that we're supposed to be collaborating with as analogous to some of the most heinous people we could point to? It just blows me away. It's like, why don't we just start calling each other pedophiles too?
Yeah.
Like let's go Nazi, let's go pedophile, let's go murderer, let's go, oh wait, murderer actually came out.
Yeah.
But it was like, I just find that so bonkers. Are you guys seeing that play out in your circles of communication as well with like 16 and 17-year-olds? Like, if you're talking about people debating, Are people actually attempting to understand where the other people are coming from, or are they just going for like the trump card, so to speak?
I mean, I haven't been politically vocal on any of my social media platforms.
Gee, I wonder why not.
So I cannot speak on that, but I know Carly might have something to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about what's been going on, and I've been paying a lot of attention, and I want to go into law. So it's just something that I've been very interested in. And so I think that certain people can have that mutual conversation, and I've had, I think, one conversation, and it was like mutual, and we came to an understanding. We're like, okay, you have your views and I have mine, and
Sure.
that's perfectly okay. We live in a country that it's perfectly okay to believe whatever you want to, say whatever you want to. You have all of these freedoms in the Constitution. However, there have been a lot of people that have not been very accepting of the way that I think, and it's just, I wouldn't say it's toxic, but like being called a racist and like calling
That's
my
pretty
entire
bad.
family out on social media, and like posting things about, like saying things about me, and like I'm not friends with a bunch of people because of it now, and they haven't been super accepting of it, which is fine. Like if you think that, like, then I mean, I don't want to be your friend. Like I have no problem with anybody, like as long as you respect me and I will respect you. But I think that there are a lot of kids our age that need to be mature about this and understand that there are plenty of different people who don't think the same, and a lot of that comes from the way that you're brought up, what your parents' views are as well, like what religion you're a part of, what race you are, like or even gender. I mean, for me, like being called a racist is completely, like, I won't accept that, because I mean, I'm not. I have like people in my family that are people of color, and like my best friend growing up was African American, and I like really thought that I was a part of their family. And so like that just felt like a personal attack, because obviously I'm not. I love everyone no matter who you are. Like I am one of the most accepting and kind people ever, and it's just frustrating that because of the way that I think, like those terms get thrown around.
First, I'm very sorry you had to go through that. I mean, what a sham. Because look, unless you're going to really surprise me and tell me that you actually did say something racist, which I do not, I couldn't fathom you doing that. It's that kind of thing. I've been telling people for months, the way adults are setting the stage for communication, especially since we've all been thrust into the digital communication, right? That's one thing that, okay, if there was no digital communication all of a sudden, and people were forced to come to like the town square and talk about things, I'm willing to bet you would have a much different dialogue.
Yes.
Okay? But the opposite has happened. We have all been thrust into digital communication, and we know that that form of communication makes it easy to mischaracterize. It makes it so enjoyable to get little wins and get likes and like, oh snap, I got him, and like little traps, and it breeds because of that. And it's like it's almost like giving. I'm getting a dog soon, okay, and it's like you got to give them treats, you got to give them rewards. Well, on social media, people get rewarded for saying the most outlandish stuff, for calling people racist, even though it's completely not true. And even though it's just like, look, this person doesn't agree with me on this issue that has nothing to do with race. They don't agree with me, so I'm just going to call them racist so I can instantaneously devalue whatever opinion they may have, and I won't have to address it.
Yeah.
And that's what we have all, I mean, I don't want to speak for you. What I can say is I've seen adults fall into this year long of digital communication and just dissolve into like insanity, where you're kind of like, what are you doing? You're doing the things we warn our young people about. You have become the cyberbullies. You have become the most vitriolic, nasty cesspool possible. What are you doing? right? And again, I don't think it's entirely their fault, because if we didn't have Facebook, we all likely would not be acting this way. But because we've been forced into that, this is like what happens. It's kind of like a sugar pill. You're kind of like, oh, that tastes good. Oh, that tastes good. And you start behaving this way more and more and more. You guys, the topic of cyberbullying and just social manipulation in the cyber world has been hot for a long time, right? Ever since social media has really started picking up. Has that changed for you at all? I mean, I know you're saying that you have disagreements with people, but are you guys experiencing an increase in, attacks and manipulation and defamation and things like that?
Yeah, I would say definitely since quarantine and since we all were locked up, the one thing everyone would do is go online because it was something everyone had easy access to. And the amount of name calling, cyberbullying, everything has shot up way more than I have ever even noticed. And not even person to person, but publicly displaying things about other people have been out there on Instagram, Snapchat, any social media platform. And especially accounts have been made, confession accounts about people who go to our school and
I'm sorry, back up. What's a confession account?
It's confessions about students at our school.
Okay. But that's not it's not the individual student who's going on being
No.
like, let me tell you,
They're
No.
leaking
I stole.
information.
Okay.
Yes.
So these are defamation accounts.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're okay.
They've always kind of been around, but it's gotten significantly worse. They'll pull up videos from kids from years ago and they'll get posted, and then these kids will get completely blasted and canceled, and then it'll happen to the next kid.
Okay. Without using names, Kylie, would it be possible for you to give me an example? Because I think a lot of adults, especially when they hear the word cyberbullying, they're like, listen, in my day, I actually got beat up. Okay. And I was small and I couldn't run away, and again, horrible. And so when you bring up cyberbullying, I think there are some people who take it really seriously, but then there are others that kind of say look, you can just turn off the computer. Mm-hmm. So if I may ask, and again, no personal details, could you give me an example of what you're talking about?
There are many examples. Some of them are very specific, others are more general, but on an Instagram story, it would have your name posted and then something that you did or something that people, I don't even know an example to say without naming.
Zero names, just actions. So-and-so did something.
So-and-so said, this is really sensitive right now, but so-and-so said the N-word, a couple years ago. Or
a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So this person is saying not a video or audio recording, but they will put up on a social media account an accusation that somebody said the N-word. And again, it's not acceptable in any context, but completely out of context. And it's just an accusation up on Facebook, and that person who's being accused does not get the benefit of innocent until proven guilty.
Yes. They're guilty.
It's kind of just entertainment for kids these days on social media. Whatever you have ever done in your life, someone will find it, someone will post it, and it's amusement for other kids.
It's really unfortunate. I think there's a lot of cancel culture that's been going on. If you do these things, you will lose friends. And I think, cyberbullying has been around for a very, very long time. I had to learn that at an extremely young age, unfortunately. I went through a situation that I couldn't just turn off my phone and it would go away. It would follow me to school. And it was within a friend group, and through text messages saying you're not worth being my friend, all this stuff.
God.
But I feel I was one of those small cases back then. And now it honestly could happen to anybody. I know plenty of people that would literally say one thing and reach out to another person and try not to be controversial, and it would get completely pushed over the edge and for even saying one thing, like you can lose like, this probably sounds like super shallow, but like a ton of followers on Instagram, like a ton of like your classmates.
And
Right.
like this
And
relates,
that's a social currency, by the
Yes.
way, right?
Yeah.
Like people might blow that off, like you're saying, it sounds silly, but there are social currencies
Yeah.
that people need to understand. And it's like, if you lose half of your quote followers, that has significant real world social impacts. It's not just like, oh, fewer people are going to look at my sushi meal tonight. It's like these are that indicates a sickness or problem within real life social gatherings.
Yeah.
What you were going to say? something?
yes, this can also relate to like the whole going back to school problem. Kids have been posting about like rallies or things to do to get back in school, and other students have been posting what other kids have been saying and like totally like bashing on them and using foul language, and it's so unacceptable. Just for posting your opinion, not even harming anyone else, and getting totally canceled for it.
Well, kids are even getting death threats over it, and saying like the kids are getting threatened, and there are other kids telling these kids to like go kill themselves. Like, you are so selfish to want to be back into school. You are so like this and that, and you shouldn't be going back in school because we are in a pandemic and there are people that are dying. However, there are a lot of kids that at our age that are dying of other reasons. And it should be your decision and your family's decision whether to go back to school or not. For me, my family's not at a risk. I have no family that lives here, so I'm perfectly fine going back to school. Like, I don't have to worry about grandparents or anybody else getting
Right.
the virus. Like, that's just me. Like, if you have grandparents and you're worried about that, like, perfectly fine. You don't have to go back. That's your own decision. I'm not gonna like hate on you for making the best choice for you and your family, or even if you don't want to go back at all, like for reasons besides health.
Right.
Like,
Right. And it's, again, a very recent conversation I was having with a dear friend. He lives in Seattle. He's not on any social media. Okay, he and his wife, we went to Cal together, and then he joined the Marines and became an officer in the Marines. And his wife was a Navy brat, moved around. You know, her dad was in the Navy, career Navyman, and they got together and got married. And they both were just like, look, I'm not into social media. I'm not messing around with this, right? My buddy Max and I were like some of the first people on Facebook, and pretty quickly he was like, what is this, man? What are we? And it looked a lot different back in the day. But anyway, so I was talking to Max because he was like, look, I just don't participate in any of this. I don't worry about it. I don't, no big deal. But the problem is, this type of system is something that affects you whether you participate or not. So for you to say, hey, look, I couldn't turn off my phone, it's something that followed me to school, I don't think people really understand that whether or not you respond to this, to the accusations, whether or not you're like, they're calling me a racist, this is ridiculous, I'm just going to turn off my phone, I'm not going to pay attention. That follows you to the physical world where now people are giving you the stink eye at school. Right? And that leads to this large scale data gathering where you can eventually like lob this big collection of falsehoods, exaggerations, outright lies and stuff, and just lob them and get somebody like, kicked out of school. But it's so beyond the state where you could say, hey, let's just ignore this. And it's being perpetuated by the very people that are telling our young people to stop doing it. It's being perpetuated by adults. Again, like, there have been plenty of people who have warned me against talking to young people or talking to people on different sides of the issues, right? Like, I'm an SAT tutor. I just help people, right? I help students. And they're like, listen, if you take sides here, then you're going to lose clients. I'm like, okay, first off, I'm not taking sides. I'm totally happy to talk to both sides. They're like, if you talk to one side and the other side doesn't want to talk to you, they could claim that you were already siding with the other people. Like, they could make up all these accusations. And that has real world consequences. That has real, like, I guarantee you, Not that I was going to get clients from a certain group of people, but I guarantee you it's impossible. And I'm not doing this anyway. I don't care. I'm doing what I think is right, which is bringing everyone to the table. Hey, look, you feel a certain way. You had a classmate. His name was Nick, right? That was advocating for a compassionate return, giving teachers options, things like that. I reached out to him almost instantly and said, "Would you consider coming and talking to me about this? Because it seems like you have a genuine concern for people. It seems like that you're kind of advocating for another side, and I think you should be heard. I think that's wonderful." And he was all about it. And then he had some personal things that happened, and then he didn't want to pursue it anymore. But just because you're trying to avoid the nasty doesn't mean the nasty's not going to follow you. And that's how we're teaching people to behave. And it's terrifying to me because, look, how are you guys ever going to even go out and hang out with friends in the future? Like, let's say you can go back to school this coming week. Monday comes, the school's open, get all did up, get your hair did, get your makeup on and stuff. And you go, I don't know if you wear makeup. I'm not trying to assume you get dolled up. My point is you go to school, okay? You go to school, you see your friends are like, party, no drinking, nothing crazy, but there's a party this Saturday. You're going to be there. Let's go. And you're like, oh, party. Could you go without knowing the exact guest list and wondering if all cell phones would be put away beforehand? Could you go in good conscience without being worried?
I mean, I would want to know who is there first.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But you'd want to know who is there first way more than ever. Because now, every day that goes by where there's another confession account or defamation account, every day that goes by where people are scouring your social media and making a case against Carly or Kylie, or it's like, I knew she was racist. They'll see, Carly sing along to some rap song and she's culturally appropriating. That artist is an African American. You're laughing. This is real.
We're laughing because I would never listen to that.
What do you listen to?
She's a big country girl.
I'm a country girl.
Oh my God, maybe you are racist. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm terrible. I just don't like country. Yeah.
Okay, I can agree to an extent. When I hang out with her, the country is just so overplayed.
Okay, but then
overplayed.
you can just take my phone and play music. I'm completely open to other music. I'm just uncultured in it. I need new songs.
I'm uncultured.
Well,
So
I don't
uncultured.
listen to other music. I don't like to listen to rap music personally. I was into.
What about Kanye, bro?
Oh my God.
What
We've
about
had this
Kanye?
conversation about
I
Kanye.
know, but what about
He's
him?
so good.
What? Thank you.
I
What
mean-
about it?
There's some songs I just don't listen to it. I used to be in musical theater and acting, so for whatever I connect really well with music, and I really like them having
How
a
come
message.
you don't connect with Kanye?
How come you don't connect with
Yeah.
Ye?
Yeah.
What about Ye?
Come on.
I'll listen to Kanye on the way home then.
Oh my God, he's the best. He's the best. You know what? I think I was telling you this. I'm taken by him because it's not like there are a lot of artists in the world, right? And there are a lot of people that make money in the world. There aren't a lot of people that are artists that make the kind of money he has made and kept it and are doing the things he's doing with it. So no matter how bonkers you think the dude is, and for him to marry a Kardashian, I don't care whatever he did, that was the
Props to
craziest
him.
thing he ever did. I was like, look, you had me with your bipolar, because I got a lot of juice. I was like, you had me with your bipolar stuff. I was cool with you. Marrying that chick, no, that's where I draw the line. But the point is, it's kind of like you can't deny that he has his finger on the pulse of something. And his music, you listen to, you're like, how did he think of this? I don't know. I haven't always been a fan. Just like I wasn't always a fan of Lady Gaga till I, saw A Star Is Born, and then I cried.
No, the way his mind works is insane.
Genuinely,
honestly,
it is
yes.
far beyond comprehension from me.
Yeah.
But I felt this way with Key and Peele, the Comedy
Yes,
Central
yes.
guys. So their classic skit, the substitute teacher,
Mm-hmm.
right, where it's like,
Right.
where's Jake Quellen? And dude's like, my name's Jacqueline. He's like, okay, Jake Quellen, right? And Aaron, he's like, it's Aaron. He's like, okay. He flips out, right? You watch those. You watch the Key and Peele skits, and there are a couple. There's the substitute teacher, and then there's the East versus West, okay, where they're doing a spoof on college football, and they make up all the ridiculous players and all the ridiculous names. You watch that, and you realize, like, oh my God, I have committed my life to helping students progress on these tests. This tiny little BS narrow style of judging and grading intelligence. And you see Key and Peele on Comedy Central, and you're like, oh my God, they're geniuses. There's no student I've ever worked with to help get a better grade that could ever come up with that. I mean, maybe there is, but I haven't met him. It's bonkers to me. So yeah, when you say like Kanye's great, I have to agree. He's great, if nothing else, that he has been able to do what he did, and he's been able to keep it. Because, like, MC Hammer, you ever hear anything about MC Hammer?
Nope.
No. MC Hammer was like, he had his own brand of pants, man. You know, like, he made money, but you don't see him trying to change the world. Yeah. And I'm not saying Kanye is going to be successful, but why would he even try? Like, think about that. You're Kanye West. What are you doing?
The fact that he's stayed relevant for, like, so long is so crazy.
Yes. You know who else has stayed relevant is Beck, which is funny because Kanye went up and interrupted Beck in front of his during like an acceptance speech because he thought Beyonce should have gotten an award. Yes. But what's crazy is Beck stayed relevant. He plays like 20 different instruments. He makes all his own music, and he's making music that resonates and that's amazing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Yeah. Kanye's out there. So look, if we may go back, we kind of went far afoot because apparently you don't like Kanye.
But I never said I didn't like him. I said I didn't listen.
Listen, we all know your position at this point. Uncultured. So if we go back, do you think you would be as comfortable being social with people as you were in the past, knowing that the sphere of social influence has moved into the digital realm, which favors these horrible lambasting posts and these just ridiculous behaviors, right? Do you think you'd be comfortable, or do you think your circle is going to be much tighter and smaller?
I've experienced my circle has gotten really tight during COVID. It really has shown the true colors of everyone who I've been around and made me realize who I want to be friends with and who I don't want to be friends with. And obviously showing up to a party, social media would be a huge factor. But on the other hand, I've realized that if I'm happy and my friends are happy, then I'm all good. So I would be completely fine.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced the same thing. My circle has gotten extremely tight now because of everything that's been going on. For me, I feel like I'd be more apprehensive going back because I've been more vocal on what I believe, and
How horrible is that? Not that you've been vocal, but that you, an intelligent, reasonable, honest person, you're not saying these things in bad faith. You're like, look, this is genuinely how I feel. I'm not trying to be provocative. This is it. That you would now be apprehensive in your hometown around people that used to be friends with you, used to follow you on Instagram, used to follow you. I'm an ex-follower. And now you're going to be worried about the repercussions of just speaking your mind.
Yeah. I definitely would be worried about who would want to be friends with me. And if like my friends were even fake, because I've had to deal with a lot of fake friends before in the past. And like, I honestly like worry, like, can I be like who I really am? Like, can I be like my true self around other people? Because I'm very worried about what they might think of me. Like Kylie, like we've been friends for like 6 years, and like she knows like everything about me. So like I'm not worried there, but like school friends and like pretty much all my other friends, I like haven't really been able to like fully like be who I am.
Of course. And why would you? Why would you? It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Right, like, I get worried in class now. Or, not a ton. But I do worry sometimes because it's kind of like, look, I speak so openly. And I encourage people to engage both sides. And I have never, ever told a student, like, you're wrong. I was having this discussion a couple weeks ago. This is hilarious. I don't know how, but the Gucci winter line
we were talking about that.
Yes. So it came up, and this girl in class said, well, men used to wear dresses. And I was kind of like, what? She was like, well, like 200 years ago, dudes had dresses. And it caught me so off guard. She's like, it's just a piece of clothing. And of course I wasn't like, well, you're wrong. I thought about it all week, and I did like a ton of research. And I came back, I was like, we got kilts. That's a thing from Scotland. We got like Polynesian grass skirts and things like, so like went down this whole thing. I was like, yes, men have and likely will continue to wear some manner of dress or skirt in a more traditional fashion. But the way Gucci is presenting it, it's like the Little Red Riding Hood dress and this super like tiny non-masculine dude. Like they're not sending out like a Maui figure in a grass skirt, which would be so awesome. Could you imagine if Gucci did like a Polynesian line? Like, God, man, I would buy that. Anyway, and like I really wanted a kilt. I wanted to go to my last homecoming with a kilt in high school because I thought it would be so, because like if you ever see people in kilts at a wedding, like a traditional Scottish wedding, you're like, those guys have something figured out. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but like they got the little rat purse thing, which looks really cool, and they got high socks. Anyway, my point is I appreciate it because she pushed back, and I was like, yes, here's somebody who's not just going to like go along with my joke of making fun of Gucci. And we ended up having, every time she comes in, we end up having these like super intense conversations, and they're not always safe. We had a conversation just last week. She was like, look, I think the reason people view the riots and siege on the Capitol that preceded the inauguration as racist, because I was like, I didn't see a lot of like swastikas there. Like why? And Trump is touting himself as being the best president to add the African American population ever, right? So like, how do you see it as racist? You know what she said? I so appreciate it. She was like, look, the Caucasian, the people who stormed the Capitol were predominantly Caucasian. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. There's some people of color there, but predominantly Caucasian, fine. She's like, and they were treated in a certain fashion. Okay, and at one point they were just getting waved into the Capitol building. Now, there were plenty of instances where people were like dying and there were clashes and it was bad, but at some point they just said, hey, look, just come in, whatever. You want in, come in, right? She said, imagine the disparity in treatment between those people and Black Lives Matters protesters. And again, there are plenty of things I could have said like, well, not all Black Lives protesters are people of color. There are plenty of advocates, and some in your school, in fact, that I know that I've worked with that are very vocal and very, very pro Black Lives Matter. The specific movement, not just the sentiment, right? But that specific movement. But again, I was like, you know what? I got to think on that. That's a beautifully stated point, which is there are just disparities in the way law enforcement is dealing, and we will never know if it was rooted in racism. Right? Like nobody can say for sure, but she had that thought and she wanted to bring it out. I think that's beautiful. I so appreciate her speaking up, and I appreciate everyone respectfully listening. There hasn't been a single time in class where somebody gave her a hard time for it. And we have these like 10-minute conversations, but I worry about that. I worry about, look, is there like an expiration date on my ability to have honest conversations with my students? Like, is somebody going to go home and say Matt was talking about this, or the student said that, and I don't want to go back? Because what else are we supposed to do in education but have honest conversations with people, right? In like a safe way, where like the safe spaces at school, they're not safe.
No.
You do the wrong thing, you say the wrong thing, you look at somebody the wrong way, you're out, right? Mm-hmm. Like safe space means anything can be a threat, right?
Yeah.
And in here, you can't get in trouble for saying anything. At least I'm like, there are boundaries, but I'm not going to stop people from, if she wants to say, hey, men used to wear dresses. If somebody says that's stupid, I'm going to be like, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. She gets to say that, right? You don't get to be threatened by that.
Yeah.
I worry about that because I don't think you guys get enough of that, because that's how you really learn how to think and dialogue and debate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, especially at school, like there's a lot of people that think extremely similarly. Like it's basically like whatever the majority thinks is kind of what goes, is my perception of it.
May I ask you, I don't mean to interrupt, may I ask you, do you think that they actually think that way? Or do you think your peers perhaps may just not have the same kind of courageous nature and support that you have to actually say what they think? Because think about that. The majority thinks one way, so we're like, well, the majority acts like they think one way.
Yeah.
They act like it. They don't say they do. They act like they think one way. Okay, do we know for sure that those people actually think that?
No, I don't think so. I think that some people that are more quieter will just like go along with it and won't
Right.
really speak up. And it's more of the kind of extremes that speak up more. I think I had one conversation with a good friend of mine, and like our views are completely opposite. And kind of like the rest of the people that were there just kind of like sided with her a little bit. And I was like, okay, like that's fine, like whatever. And so that's just kind of how I thought school was going to be as well, because like what she was saying was similar to like what other people have said in the past and what other people have posted on their social media stories, like their Instagram stories, like whether it's like posting a black square or
Right.
posting like tweets on their Instagram story, or like these little like info articles on Instagram. It'll be like one could be like the number of COVID deaths. One could be like something about the presidential election. Something can be about racial injustices.
As you were saying that, right, you're saying, look, I was having this conversation with somebody and there were people observing it and they sided with her. And you said, okay, that's fine. Like I respect you, we're not going to worry about it. What a great representation of what actually happens on social media. You lose followers, she gains followers. That's literally like they get behind her. They're now following her. She's like the tip of the spear, and they're like, this is the direction I want to go. And that's what's happening in real life.
Yeah.
So it's not just that you're losing, 20 or 30 people following you. It's literally that if you're in a room, they might go to the other side of the room.
Yeah.
God, man. Hat off to you two trying to make this happen every day. I know you don't really have an option, but what a rough situation. What do you guys think you're going to do if we don't get back in school in the fall?
I have been looking into other options, including private schools, homeschooling, even moving to live with other people in my family. But I just think that there's no way in my mind that we will not go back to school because of the amount of time that they have had to get us ready to go back to school, the amount of effort the parents have put in, and all other like influencers, adults. I just think it's crazy if we were not able to return. But I obviously think that there should be a choice if you would like to return or not, because I know it's not safe for everyone.
Right.
Everyone has their own opinion. Anyone
Right.
can do whatever they would like to do, but
Right.
I just think that kids can't keep doing this. We have to have some type of option out of this screen environment.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think you'll do?
For me, I have a lot of different options. Both of my sisters are going to be at Carondelet. My sister, Ryan, she's a sophomore. She just transferred at the semester. And then my littlest sister, she's applying to be a freshman there. So either I can try and be one of those rare seniors at Carondelet transfers,
Right.
or I could move. I'm either going to move to Utah or Texas. My family was thinking about moving to Utah. Potentially it would just be me and my mom. And then I have really good family friends that live in Texas. Or I'm going to graduate early and take the GED test when I turn 18 and go to community college in Texas. Those are kind of my options right now. There's a program at UT Austin with the Austin Community College, and all the freshmen live together at the UT dorms. So I'd just be basically going to college at UT and transferring there as a sophomore and do 1 year community college.
God, man, to hear, both of you great, obviously, you're thinking ahead, but to hear that your options are literally, from my senior year, I'm going to move out of state with my mom, break up my family, and or abandon high school completely, get my GED and leave. Man, what is it coming to? I heard this really dark thing that just yesterday, that people are now questioning whether teachers will return if not all students are vaccinated. And if we end up saying, hey, the teachers are not going to return if the students, high school students, are not vaccinated, guess what? You are the last person who will get the vaccine, just because you have workforce and you have everything else. And on top of that, it's my understanding the vaccine hasn't even been tested on, like 15 and 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
So how many more months, or is it a year until we'll have a vaccine that we know for sure is safe? And we should know that, right? Like the Moderna vaccines and stuff, they were testing them on like 40,000 people. So we have a pretty large sample. But man, if it comes to that, where they're like, I'm not going to be around a teenager who's not vaccinated, there's no way to get around that. Like, there's no way you guys will jump ahead of like the 25-year-old that's in the workforce or the 35-year-old. Like, you would be the last.
Yeah.
To your detriment.
Plus, like, we're not really affected by COVID. Like, we're not the population that's getting sick or showing symptoms or even really dying.
Right.
It's just like I think a lot of people, or at least me specifically, like, feel kind of hopeless in this because we don't have a date specifically that we're going to go back. And for me, like, that January 5th date was kind of like what I was like hanging on to.
Yeah, right.
Because for me, I learn extremely well in person. Like, coming to the ACT classes have literally been such a lifesaver for me. Because
Wonderful.
I'm able to sit here and I'm able to learn and I'm grasping the material. Like, I've had to drop out of classes at SRV because I can't learn it. Like, I was in a pre-calc class and my teacher I wasn't connecting with my teacher, wasn't learning, was extremely lost. I had tutors. I was trying the best that I could, but I just could not get there. And I had the worst grade in that class that I've ever had in my entire life. And so I was like, would it be more beneficial for me to drop it right now and take it through an online program that would be way better suited for me to be doing this remotely at home, and actually learn the material and be able to move on to calculus and AP Stat?
Right.
Or do I just stick the course and get whatever grade I do? And so I was just like, I'm just going to drop it. Like, I'd rather learn and get a good grade than not learn and get a bad grade.
Yeah, I think both the learning and good grade.
It's a win-win.
I feel like that's a win.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a big one. Yeah, I heard a statistic recently that about 1,400 people have left the district, and if you estimate about $10,000 of district funding per person, I think that's like $14 million. Yeah. So the amount of money that's going to be lost in the coming years, it's going to be a madhouse. But listen, here's to hoping that doesn't happen, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you for coming. I greatly appreciate the time and the conversation. It's almost been an hour. We just flew through this. It was beautiful. Let's do it again. Let's do it again in a couple months. Hopefully we'll have better things to look forward to. Hopefully you guys will be a little bit more optimistic. Hopefully sports are coming back, right?
Yes.
I mean, we'll have to see. Hopefully we don't have a spring surge with Easter Bunny or something. Anyway, well, thanks a lot, ladies. Appreciate it.
Thank you.